Hi, Phil Aston here from Now Spinning Magazine with the latest edition of Chart Watch. And I am going to get round to talking a little bit about what's been going on in the charts, the album charts this week, and look at the breakdown between CD and vinyl sales. But I also want to look at the bigger picture as well, and how I see the future of physical music based on my own experience. Now, I did quite a lengthy episode a week ago, and where I had quite a lot of interaction on the comments on the YouTube channel, from emails to me personally, and also across all of our social media platforms as well. And that was great, but I had obviously had some people say I was contradicting what I'd said the week before, when I was just completely, some people thought I was completely pro CD, and other people said I didn't sound quite as upbeat as I had done. The thing is that what I do here is independent and completely from the heart. I am a music fan first. I am passionate about the art form of music. I collect and listen to music. I don't collect formats. Well, I guess I collect things on formats, but I'm not one or the other. There are lots of YouTube channels and websites and Facebook groups and communities that are just one or the other. I'm not going to name anybody, but there are some that are just completely CD. There are communities that are completely vinyl. There are platforms and YouTube channels that don't go near streaming. They think it's, the spawn of Satan and no one should stream. Now Spinning Magazine isn't like that. It accepts all formats and all ways of enjoying and listening to music. I have my own personal viewpoint on how I like to listen to music. I did a video separately on that. But it's a bit like books. I can't afford everything that's released that I like. I can't read everything that I might like. So I might go to the library and borrow a book and read it, and then I take it back. And streaming is a great way of discovering new music. How else am I going to do that? Hope that one of my friends picks something up and tells me about it, or I just hover around the radio, or I use YouTube. But I personally, I have thousands of records and CDs, and I work from home. And sometimes I look along the racks, and I just don't know what to put on. And I just haven't got the time to, and I go, oh, shall I put that? So I'll click stream and I'll click random play if it's my own Apple library, which is from my CD collection. And then something might be playing, and I think, what's that? I don't know that. And I'll go up and see what it says on the little album artwork, and I think, God, I haven't played that for years. I forgot all about that album and I couldn't even remember that track. So I'll pull out that album later on and play it. And for Spotify, I might be listening to some new melodic rock, a new A&R album that I not really know much about, and it will suggest something else from Sweden or Norway that I've never heard of, that I would never have found on my own. And I play that, and that sounds really good. And if I really like it, I'll go off to the Bandcamp page and I'll buy the CD, or I'll buy an album. And the CD might be like paperback version in my mind, and if it's something I really, really love, I might invest in the vinyl album and see it as like the more deluxe edition of what it is that I'm buying. But there's been lots of stuff recently about what's selling more and what's doing well, and the wording has changed, because as we know, a couple of weeks ago the wording was that vinyl outsells CD for the first time. And Music Week, which is a publication I subscribe to and absolutely respect, actually says now that new revenue figures from the Entertainment Retail Association, ERA, which I mentioned last week, vinyl now outsells CD in terms of value. Tick. That's all we wanted to hear. So yes, in terms of value, we're heading towards, I think it was it was about 150 million, wasn't it, vinyl sales, and I think CD sales about 25 million behind in that score. So yes, vinyl in value has overtaken it. And I had to admit that although I've been kind of saying that the number one position albums or number two position albums, the CD sales have outstripped in units, copies, the vinyl ones have been obviously outgoing in regards to revenue. And overall, in the UK, which is where I'm based, CD volume went down by about 17%. So, I have to be honest and say that is what's happening. However, in the olden days of yore, the way the charts was done was that before the internet, boys and girls, there were just record shops. There was a bit of mail order, but most people hadn't got the patience to send off stuff like that, really. It was all bricks and mortar shops, really. And so you could get a machine, and as you sold a record, you would scan it, and that barcode would tell the charts unit, where I actually worked nearby for a market research company for about 11 years, would then tick up that sale for that particular record. And it was fairly accurate, apart from obviously pluggers going round and giving a backhander to the record boss once they found out who was on the system, and giving them a few free copies over the counter so they would count up the sales. And so it was called rigging the charts. But it's all far more accurate than that, or is it? And I say that because those shops still exist, and those machines still exist, tagging the album sales as they go across the counter. But so much of that now is outside of the system. And I'm not talking about the tens and thousands of second-hand CD sales and vinyl sales on Discogs or eBay, obviously, because that's a separate market, but it's massive. And the CD market, second-hand CD market, has grown exponentially because so much stuff is out of print now and becoming quite valuable. But it's more about the fact that the bands selling their albums directly from Bandcamp. Lots of the record labels and selling things directly from their websites. The Cherry Reds, etc., proper music, and artists like Fish, who sold so many copies of his last solo album, he would have made the top 10 charts, but none of them were counted because obviously he's not part of the system. So all of those CD sales and vinyl sales, not all of them are going through the system. So a bit like the true sense of market research, you can interview 10,000 people and ask them what do they think about baked beans, but that's a sample size of 10,000, and then you can extrapolate that data to try and work out what it would be like if you extended it over a bigger sample size. And in many ways, the charts is like that. So when we talk about the number of sales and what's gone out the door, it really does depend on that retailer and about what is really happening, and that's the confusion. And of course, what do I want to see from the music business? I think I want the music business, the record labels and the PR agencies and the bands and the publishers and the management companies to realise that those of us who love to buy physical music, and I'm not just talking about those of us who've been around the block a few times, like me and a lot of my peer group, is that a lot of young people, like my sons Dan and Lee, are passionate about music. There are people in their teens and 20s who are getting into music, but what you don't want to do is try and lessen the value of one format against the other. Because one thing is for certain, is that streaming is here to stay, and it's a wonderful way to be discovered. Now, I understand that the payment system from streaming, although it's improved in places, it's still woeful compared with what bands actually get. But I was talking to an artist the other week and convinced them that they should be on Spotify and Apple. The reason is because how are you going to be found by people who've never heard of you? And if you've got a Facebook page with 600 people that like your page, and the way that Facebook throttles who sees your post unless you're going to pay to promote that post, how are you going to do that? Yes, you want people to buy a CD or buy a vinyl album and come to your concerts. But if you're on Spotify and Spotify recommends your band to someone that likes a similar band, then they may be minuscule royalties, but they're like icing on the cake, aren't they? And that's what's happened to me numerous times. The latest Now Spinning magazine Spotify playlist is full of stuff that some of it I have on vinyl, some of it on CD, and some of it I haven't bought either yet. But without being on those streaming platforms, I would never have found out about those bands, because how I started Now Spinning magazine was based on me wandering around HMV Records about a few years ago, and just noticing I was at the time one of the few people in the shop, and trying to think something to buy, and it was quite depressing, to be honest. And I'd come home and I'd say to my mates, so I bought a CD, and a lot of my mates had stopped buying music. They didn't buy music, they didn't stream anything, they'd stopped buying CDs or records. And I thought, God, am I the only person that does this? You know, it's like, and I love it, why, you know, and that's how I started it. I started a website, I started a YouTube channel, and there are people all around the world who buy music. So that was great, and that's what starting online communities is a wonderful thing to do. But I didn't want to be kind of tied into it's CD only or vinyl only. Anyway, this gets me back to a core point, because in the late 80s, I was Mr. Vinyl. I just loved records, but records were starting to sound rough, because the CD was out and I hadn't adopted it yet. If you watch the Why I Think CDs Still Rock, you'll see I was a late adopter to this format. And, you know, Def Leppard were bringing out albums, and there was like, you know, the CD could give you 60 to 70 minutes of music, so bands were expanding and putting more tracks on, and you were getting the equivalent of a double album with each release, and vinyl couldn't do that. Vinyl only supposed to have 20 minutes aside, but the record companies wanted everyone to buy CDs, so they just put out the vinyl version with no inner sheet, no lyrics, basic information on the back, crammed on 30 minutes of music each side. They were noisy pressings, they were quiet, and they were very bendy. I can show you an example, a good example, which is going to appear in a future video. This is Dokken, Back for the Attack, which is a very long album, way too long to be a single vinyl release. They did give it an inner sleeve with some credits on, but this is very thin vinyl, very quiet. It's not a great pressing, but that's the way it came out. And the CD came out, sounded great, and obviously the Rock Candy remaster sounds even better. Now I'm going to be reviewing that soon, and I just want to show you, if I can, just in isolation. This is the new version of Back for the Attack by Dokken, and it's now a double album. They haven't given me a gatefold because that would, you know, that obviously quite sensibly that would be more work, and that's not how it originally came out. They've included the extra sheet, the sheet which had the pictures and the lyrics on inside. But it is on now 180 gram vinyl, and there are 2 discs inside the album, and it's rock solid. And that's because the labels are pushing vinyl and they care about it now, and they want everyone to love it. So care and attention is now going into that format. Great, very happy. And you've seen me review vinyl albums which have come with little full-size booklets, and it's wonderful. What's happening now, of course, is that the CD is being seen as less loved. So some of the ways that CDs are being put out, if I can find some, and I don't want to pick on any particular labels here, but this is a great album. Peter Goldberg, as you know, I reviewed it, but it's just that. It's not a booklet, it's just that. And as a music punter, I bought this because I love it. But for someone just seeing it for £11, does it feel like you're buying something that's of that value? Or Deep Purple's live series. I know they're supposed to, they're making them try and make look bootlegs, but the cynical side of me thinks that they just think that'll do. And same way in vinyl in the 80s, there was kind of, that'll do. We've got to put a vinyl version out, that'll do. And some CDs are feeling like that. Now, some CDs come out like this is the Mick Cox band, which was never released at the time. No plastic at all. Gatefold sleeve with a great informative booklet. I love that. Of course, the Robert Plant Alison Krauss deluxe edition with that lovely media book and the lyrics. It feels good. But that's me, isn't it? That's me and my generation. And what I want to say is that there's no doubt that vinyl is doing well. Now, I'm going to give you two perspectives on this. One of them is from a guy, people have shared this blog post with me, a guy called Ted Gioa, who said, did the music business just kill off the vinyl revival? And a lot of people have shared this to me because they feel the same. They think, like, obviously vinyl is just like, everyone's gone bonkers, it's ripping everybody off, you know, why can't it just sod off and so we can just have our CDs? And what I'm saying is, there isn't one or the other, it's everything, because most of the people who I interact with buy all formats, multi-format boxes. It's physical music, it's niche, it's not going to be mainstream. It's like hardback books. My wife Sue loves Windsor Wuthering, that classic book. You can buy that paperback for about $2.99, but for Christmas she's had a super deluxe version of that book, like a Folio Society book. You could say you could have the $2.99 version, but she wants that book. She loves that story. And some people will want the deluxe version of the vinyl rather than just having the cheaper version. It's normal. But what Ted says is, he talks about the fact that about vinyl itself, it's saying what they should have done better. They should have built up the capacity to manufacture these things. They should have reduced the prices, etc. They could expand the product line. All the things the record companies have done badly. But I think the thing is that if we were heading back to where we were with physical music, if there wasn't such a thing as streaming and the internet, then perhaps. But I think the record labels probably know that, physical media is 15%. It might maybe one day it will get to 25%, but it's not going to be 80%. It's going to be what it is. So it's just like the Folio Society hardback books. It's a specialist audience. It's an audience of size. In the UK, it's worth 250 million a year, let's say. So you're not going to not want to do that. But it's always going to be niche. The days of seeing a picture sleeve single that says first 25,000 copies come with a picture sleeve. 25,000 copies. I did the review of the Alan Parsons project vinyl set, 1,500 copies worldwide. I think there's about 100 left. And a lot of box sets, a lot of vinyl release. I know there's a record label just focused on heavy metal. It released the print runs for vinyl releases are 300. Just 300 copies and that's it, done. So yeah, they're about 35 quid each. There's only 300 in the world. And the same with a lot of CD box sets. You might see Cherry Red and say, well, there must be thousands. No, there isn't. There might be 2,000 copies. There might be 2,000 copies of a specialist release CD. Just to test the market, they might do another one. But they'll be in short groups because that's how physical music is now. So, Ted says record companies hate running factories. Yeah, they do. I'm going to agree with Ted on all this. They refuse to spend money on R&D. If they don't need to, they probably won't. Okay, I understand that. They want easy money. Yeah, I would go along with that. The way that they looked at CDs in the beginning. Why was The Wall by Pink Floyd nearly 40 quid on CD when it first appeared? I remember buying classical CDs, not box sets, 2 CD sets of an opera for Sue, and they were like £35. I remember buying Pace Ashton Lord, Malice in Wonderland. It was 20 quid. Single CD. It's just like going back to the early 90s. It was bonkers. It was absolutely bonkers. So yeah, easy money. And it was hype. It was just in reverse. And the level of greed is off the charts, says Ted. Yeah. But Yes and no. I think the market needs to settle down. I mean, going back to the 80s and 90s or 70s, a double album was, when I was a kid, a real youngster, a single album was £2.25 and a double album was £3.25. And then as you went through the late 70s, I think it was about £7.99 and £10.99, and then it was like £12.99 or whatever. But records were the same price. A double album was roughly the same. Doesn't matter what the record label was. Singles and doubles were in the same price point. Always were. Vinyl at the moment is all over the place, and it doesn't make any sense. And I think that's probably what confuses people and is causing the feeling of being ripped off. Why is one vinyl album £20 and another one £35? Why is one with a gatefold sleeve sometimes £25 and a single sleeve sometimes £33? And why is sometimes an album £17.99? I don't believe that a vinyl album can be sold for 10 quid or 15 quid. It might be because they've sat on the racks too long in Amazon, or they just sat somewhere they're not selling and they might come out as a sale price. But that cannot be the entry point. It just isn't going to be there, especially when some CDs like that Deep Purple one I just showed you, it was like nearly £20, and it's not even doesn't feel like it's worth 20 quid. It's like no love has gone into that design at all. And Ted goes on to say that, and I think this is absolutely right, that last year, when we had 15 years of constant growth in the vinyl world, the last year was just about there. I think it was 1.5% in the UK, and I think in America it was 4%. And Ted's absolutely right by saying people are praising this as about saying continued growth. Well, that's marketing. You know, if you sell one of something and you sell two of something next week, you've had 100% increase in sales. It's just marketing. People just look for the positive. It's all stats and smoke and mirrors even. So I do understand that, but yeah. And as Ted points out, that if it wasn't for Taylor Swift, the vinyl market would actually have declined. Yes, and the Arctic Monkeys, it would have gone down. But there again, to be the devil's advocate here, if Taylor Swift hadn't released Midnights and Arctic Monkeys hadn't released their album, then CD sales would have gone down even further as well, because both of those albums sold boatloads of CDs. So yeah, saying that without those two artists, vinyl sales wouldn't have grown, CD sales would have not grown, would have declined even more as well. So it's just the way we look at things. However, Ted also has another stat, which I touched on last week when I said I was talking to someone from Birmingham University about this, when I said that, you know, CDs are really popular. Lots of my readership and viewers love CDs, as do I. And she said, well, what's everyone playing them on? And, and obviously I said, well, CD players, but I had said it was harder to find them. And thank you for lots of people have said, but lots of manufacturers are now producing high-end CD players. Fantastic. But apparently half of vinyl buyers haven't got a record player, which is what, I said last week, it's called silent vinyl. People that buy vinyl but can't play it. Now, some of you of older record fans will be thinking, what is this? People buying records and they can't play them. Well, my youngest son was one of those people. He now has a record player and he plays them. But he'll buy records and it's signed by the artist, which many of them are now, because you can go directly to the artist's website and buy it straight from them. And you can get it, it's a gatefold sleeve and it's got a printed card, and it's special coloured vinyl, etc. But for convenience, he streams the album, obviously via his Bluetooth speakers, via his computer, his earpods or whatever in the car, when he's out and about. But he's got the vinyl copy to sit down and look at. Now that sounds maybe a bit strange, but to me it doesn't. I've done this myself. I've got an Audio Lab, a network, Cambridge Audio network streamer, and sometimes I'll have lots of CDs around me when I'm looking at what I'm going to do for a new video, but I'm streaming them just for ease. So I do understand that. Now that's made, obviously some people say this is just bonkers, but I don't think it is. It's like people collect books, like the deluxe edition of Edgar Allan Poe, but they haven't read it, but they've got it. So I do think that that's true. Now, the other thing I want to say, and Ted says, are the record labels already thinking ahead and thinking, if this doesn't work, we'll go on to cassettes? The cassettes are never going to take off. They're something you bundle in as a bit of a gimmick, really. Cassette lovers, I've got loads of cassettes in the garage, but there's a technology and there aren't really tape players, and I think it's just cheap, something for perhaps to produce, but I can't see that happening. Got nothing against them, but I think it's a bridge too far. And Ted says that all these figures make clear that vinyl is stalled out the size of compact disc roughly, and it basically everything's flatlining, and it's all pants. I understand why that post is popular, I really do, but it's one side of the argument. It's one side of the argument because I love records. And I went into a record shop where I live in Truro. It's an independent shop. It's got tons of vinyl, but it's got tons of cassettes. It's got tons of CDs. And it's always busy now. I used to be the only guy. There'd be a couple of old blokes like us trundling around, looking at things and then putting it back because, we didn't like the prices or whatever. Now it's full of lots of young music fans in their 20s, and it's doing really, really well. And I was asking them, how are sales? And sales are incredible. They're doing incredibly well. They've expanded the shop. They've moved into new premises. They've got tons of stock. They've got stuff on special offers. They've got loads of, and they're selling vinyl. And I said, how are you doing with CD sales? And he said, it's just not happening anymore. And I said, at all? He said, well, second-hand CDs, people will pay like £5 or something for a CD. He said, but they won't pay £10 or £15 for a new CD. They would rather save up towards the vinyl album. Now, this was market research with a very small sample size, if I can find it. See if I can. Bear with me. I reviewed this a few weeks ago. Gary Moore. Was it A Different Beat? It's a great album, and I've got both. Okay, now this the little CD, and it's in literally a replica size album sleeve with it, and it's a gatefold sleeve, and it's got a little booklet. It's got the same essay in, exactly the same. This is £6 in HMV, and the album, which is a double on Orange vinyl, is £20, £19.99 and £5.99. And I asked a couple of people, so which one would you go for? These are all people under the age of 25. Which one would you go for? And they said they go for the vinyl, because it's vinyl. It feels like it's more substantial, and they can stream it if they want to, and not the CD. So there is that as well. And the other thing is, of course, and is that HMV, which has gone bust 2 times in the UK, has had its best performance figures for years. Revenue was up by 66.8% in HMV year on year to £150.8 million, while gross profit increased by 64% to £65.4 million. The operating profit was £2 million, which I think, for HMV, I'm really pleased for them, because they're busy now. They're a record shop, and they're beyond the record shop. And obviously, they mentioned Taylor Swift again. It sold 89,000 vinyl albums, and it says here that 2022 was a great year of physical music sales, driven by a well-paced calendar of key releases that's given customers a reason to keep coming back to HMV stores and any other record shop, really. Harry Styles, Liam Gallagher, Ozzy Osbourne, Robbie Williams, Taylor Swift, Arctic Monkeys, Bruce Springsteen, Louis Tomlinson and Stormzy. And also HMV are now doing lots of live gigs. I think they did 190 gigs last year. They also had Vinyl Week. They had, obviously, National Album Day. They're going from strength to strength. And the production of vinyl remains an issue, they say, but it's got massively better in the last 12 months. and they're opening more shops. They're opening 15 more HMV shops have been opened this year, and they're doing that on the back of vinyl sales because they've done so well. And they do their £55 for 3 records offer, which apparently is a year-round offer now. Now, 55 quid is a lot of money, and you hear me saying, but if people are doing that for 3 albums for 55 quid because they know an average album is about £30, if they just want to do that, or you can buy 2 CDs for 20 quid. It's a choice. But as I said at the start of this video, I collect music. It's not about putting format against format. Everything I do here at Now Spinning Magazine is for the music fan, the music lover, and the person who loves, to hold music in their hands. So as you can see from what I'm showing you here, this is a CD. I've recently bought it, and some of the things I'm going to be reviewing in the next few weeks are going to be across all formats, as they have been since I started. But what I want is that the record labels don't diss the CD like you did when you wanted vinyl to die and you wanted everyone to buy CDs. Vinyl never died out. So the vinyl revival, it won't die out. It might level off. Vinyl never died out. Lots of us got rid of our vinyl records in the 90s because we thought, but lots of us didn't. And lots of people are buying records again now, and they love it. Setting up their turntables is like a ritual. But don't do the same with a CD now. You don't need to do a lesser release because you're trying to make everyone buy a record. The music fans want both. They will make the choice. And the amount of profit and revenue and sales isn't that dissimilar, really. And you don't want really to pitch one against the other because it could be a race to the bottom. And you actually don't want to pitch streaming physical music. It's a physical music revival if you want anything. Physical music. People just love it. They don't think, they just have collections. This is my version of this on album or CD. So that's my thing. And I really would like record labels to talk to people like myself and Paul at Super Deluxe Edition and say, we're thinking of doing this, what do you reckon? And I know it's a compromise. Some of us will say, oh, we want that rare B-side on a pink vinyl deluxe 7-inch single slotted into that box. We understand that not all those things are possible, or we want 75 live bootleg discs put on something. We don't want that either. But we want something that fits. The amount of times I review things, think, could have been done a bit better. I know it's a compromise because it's a niche thing, but fan first. Reach out and get some feedback. Don't just think, I wonder if that'll work, because it may not. Right, so I've gone on a long time in this video, but I just wanted to put that across. So what you'll always get from me is an honest opinion of what's going on, and because I just want to support music, support the bands, support the industry, support fans, and be a voice in this area. But as the data changes, what I'm saying now, I might change my mind in 2 months based on what I know, but I'll always be honest and know what's going on. And the reason why I started this whole video by saying it's a sample when they say how many things have been sold is because this week the number of unit sales to get to number 1 in the UK album chart was 10,000. That's lower than the week before. Of that, physical sales were at 2,209. That was 1,339 CDs, 865 vinyl albums by Taylor Swift. That's the lowest number. But of course, behind the scenes, loads of things are actually going on. And just to show just how... Is bonkers the right word? No, it's not. It probably is, but I'm trying to be upbeat. The singles chart, Lewis Capaldi got to number 1. The reason I point that out is that he got 55,903 sales. Of that, because normally it's always streaming, completely 100% streaming, but for this week in single sales, Lewis Capaldi sold 22,396 CDs of the single on a CD. And the CD single is something that you just don't see. So again, fans saw that was available, they wanted it and they bought it. So if you put something out for the fans in a physical format, people will buy it. So there's what's coming up soon. I'm going to say what's coming up soon for the channel. There is a new Saxon album, there's a new covers version album coming out, but I've got things that you're going to see soon. Is the Motley Crue Crucial box set, that is on vinyl. Jade Warrior 2 CD set from Cherry Red. The Dokken set, which is the vinyl box set. Bernie Marsden Blues album box set on Purple Records. Frank Black and the Catholics on vinyl, and also Trapeze box set on CD from Cherry Red. Again, the perfect format for box sets is of course the CD. So thank you for watching, thank you for being here, thank you for listening to me waffle on this area, and thank you for all your support. Please subscribe, ring that little bell, visit the website, write some comments, become a patron so you get even more insight and behind the scenes stuff as well. Join the Facebook group, see me on Twitter, Instagram, wherever you want to find Now Spinning Magazine, I shall be there. Take care, remember music is the healer and the doctor. Stay safe, and I shall see you on my next video.